What up, y'all? Just waiting on Irv. Here he is. What's up, Irv? Irv, what's going on, man?
What's good, boss? How you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for tapping in. How are you?
Yeah, doing all right.
Uh, yeah, I'm doing good. First and foremost, man, how's your family? Everybody safe and healthy during this craziness going on? Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Uh, now you good? Yeah,
Okay. So I just asked you, how's your family doing during all this craziness and the pandemic? They safe and healthy?
yeah. Everybody's good, man. Thanks for asking. I'm down here in Houston right now. Been down here today makes 8 weeks actually. So just been down here. I got a couple guys working out. So my dad was
Word.
with me. Now my mom's down here, so just hanging out.
Nice. So what we've been doing, man, we've just kind of been going in chronological order, talking to hoops with people and their career. Obviously, we don't have games going on right now, so we're all missing the game we love. So what a better way to get, advice by just talking hoops and getting to the nitty and gritty. So you're actually my first trainer that I've had on, so I'm pretty excited about that. Let's start with your playing career. We'll get to the training part, obviously. But you were a pretty good player yourself coming up in
Oh
Oklahoma City. Uh,
yeah,
talk to me about your basketball journey before you started training people, you on the court.
yeah. So I played in Oklahoma City growing up, Midwest City, Oklahoma, little suburb, and so played junior college in Division two, and you know, fell in love with the game at an early age. Man, just blessed that was able to pay for my college and stuff like that. So start working in the NBA right away. But I still miss it, man. Get there and compete, stuff like that, man. It's the best game in the world.
Yeah, so that transition from playing to coaching slash training, was it a hard transition for you to, take the focus off yourself as a player to start focusing on other guys, or was it smooth and easy? Is that something you always knew you wanted to do?
Man, nah, it's crazy. With the whole Last Dance and all that stuff going on. Tim Grover, who was Michael Jordan, him and Mike Procopio, who was a longtime player development coach for the Dallas Mavericks. They're the two that kind of got me going in, the workout um, space. I never in a million years thought that this is something I'll be doing at this level, especially, but blessed enough to be around the right people and develop the right relationships and be able to make a career of it.
Right. So I guess what would you say early in your career, what would you say was your big break where you actually got to be on a platform where you had access to talented people and people could actually see your skills as a trainer?
Yeah, man, I always tell people, with me, most of what I've been able to accomplish. Obviously, God put me in the right situations, but working with Chris Paul from his rookie year to his fifth year in the NBA when I was in New Orleans, and
Hmm.
having that brotherhood there, him and his brother, the three of us were always together. So being around the right people there, and then in the off seasons, like I said, working for Tim Grover, being around those guys in Chicago and kind of learning the ropes and things of that nature, man. Just right place at right time and being able to build um, really just a nice little network of basketball minds, of players, whoever. And here I am, 16 years later.
Yeah, and I'd imagine in your business, to be successful, a lot of trust has to be involved. These players have to trust you to really help their game, and I'm sure a lot of it's word of mouth and having a good reputation. I guess how do you develop that trust with a player? How do you open up a player to be like, hey, trust me, I'm going to help you get your game to where it needs to be. How do you develop that rapport when you're approaching guys and you first start to work with guys?
Yeah, man. It's funny. I had this conversation with a buddy of mine the other day. You know, I live in LA. Now, doing what we so many people that now basketball training, and a younger guy, he hit me up the other day and was kind of asking me, how do I navigate through some of the nonsense, because with what we do, everything's so centered around taking credit, and you'll
Yeah.
have guys that get on the court with a player just one time and take a million
Hmm.
and videos, and the next thing you know, the world thinks, oh, this is such and such's trainer, and next thing you
Right.
know, the trainer's eating off of that player. And for myself, um, I think that's one of the quickest ways to ruin a relationship. Um,
Yeah.
when players start to feel like
You're
you're
clout
really,
chasing almost.
yeah, yeah, and it's more now about the photo shoot and the production than it is actually trying to help players get better. And I was telling my guy, I'm like, look, man, half the time, I know sometimes it might leave me out of things, and opportunities I'm not able to get just because I don't post as much. But
Hmm.
it's never really been my MO, man. I been down here in Houston for 7 weeks, and I've trained, I think, 10 NBA players. The only thing I really posted was, a happy birthday to PJ Tucker and a video with Jared Vanderbilt yesterday that his
Yeah.
guy took. But for me, it's just, it's got to be about the players. This is why we do this. And then anything that comes after that is, a blessing, but it's got to be about the players first.
Cool. Now, I know you've worked for, numerous NBA franchises too. What's the balance? I've always been interested in this. What is the balance when you're actually working and you're on a staff? Are you able to train guys, on your own time too, or is it all 100% with that organization?
Because at the end of the day, in what you would be doing, like say I'm working with the Houston Rockets and I'm in the gym with Klay Thompson in the off season trying to help him
Right.
get better, and we played him in the playoffs, he breaks out a move that we've been working on all season to end
Yeah.
our season. You know what I mean? It's kind of backwards. But what I would do, because I work with Chris Paul so long, James Harden so long, these guys have relationships with guys from other teams. So on the off season, we travel so much. We end up in the same city as a lot of these guys, so they'll
Right.
pull up, work in with us in the gym from time to time. But for the most part, just my guys.
Cool. Now I know you're independent right now, and I have a bunch of questions that people have forwarded me to ask you. But before we
Okay.
get to those, what are you doing right now? I know you have your own company, your training company. Tell me a little bit about that and what you got cooking in your company.
Yeah, man. So right now, like I said, I've been in Houston for the last 7 weeks. Today makes eight, actually. Too
Yeah.
long. Um, First and foremost, thankful that I'm make a little bit of money. But down here for the last 7, 8 weeks, and I'm training a bunch of NBA guys. But my main business right now is traveling the world and doing camps, primarily
Okay.
over. I was supposed to be Australia last week. Before that, Belgium and Milan. I was in Russia when the whole NBA got shut down and everything. But mainly just doing camps overseas for kids. And I got an app that's going to be releasing soon, a training application for young players to be able to do drills and workouts and stuff at home. Um, I feel like the way I teach the game is a lot different than a lot of trainers, and so there's a lot of guys doing a lot of great things, but I think not to say mine is better or anything like that.
Right.
Uh, so I think we'll have a pretty good following and stuff, but that's really just what I am, man. I don't really desire to work in the NBA ever again. Just kind of stay in this space.
I feel like just based on your responses, being on a staff kind of limits what you can do because, your skill set, you can reach a lot of people, and the NBA limits that.
Yeah.
Um, so, before we get to the questions, you just said you've been overseas a lot working. You hear a lot of these things that, the kids overseas, they get the fundamentals at an early age more than Americans. Is that true? Is that something you notice? What's the
Yeah.
differences in skill sets?
Yeah, you look at a guy like Luka Doncic, um, but those kids over there, a lot of them, they go to full on academies,
Yeah.
uh, where they're focusing on basketball or soccer or whatever the sport may be. What's up, Scoop? They're doing these sports pretty much like their job at a young age. And so fundamentally, they can compete with our American kids when it comes to just drill work. But, the difference for them is the athleticism, uh,
Right.
move and keep up with us on an athletic level. But skill wise, they got it all.
Right. All right, cool. Let's dive into some of these questions. Good one. So, how does it feel to work with one of the league's most successful players? And does it get to you when James gets heavily criticized?
Man, with any of my guys, man, it could be like, um, whether it's Trey Young, Chris Paul, trying to think who else. Like there's like a group of like guys that I really get defensive about
Yeah.
because when it comes to anything in life, man, anything in life, everything is about timing and situation.
Hmm.
Conversations happen about who's the best at this, who's the best that. I just don't think people are smart enough basketball wise to understand the whole
Right.
picture and understand like coaching, personnel, all these things that and so, obviously James is no different. What up, Liz?
Hmm.
But James is no different because, I've known him since he was 19. But yeah, I get defensive for all my guys because I know the work that they put in, and to see people that probably didn't make varsity, try to destroy them and stuff like that is
Right.
pretty crazy.
Yeah, I myself try to stay, and I feel like I'm pretty knowledgeable about basketball, but I myself try to stay away from the GOAT conversations, this and that, because it doesn't do much of anything really. You end up breaking down a guy who's super talented, trying to build your other guy up, and
Yeah,
it's
but
kind of it's kind of it's kind of silly.
that's the one of my pastors said it a couple weeks ago. Like, the fastest way to tear something great down compared to something else. And
Yeah.
with the whole Last Dance thing, it's like, all right, cool. Let's focus on how great Michael Jordan was. But of course, LeBron stuff comes up every 5 minutes, and it's like, look, this ain't about him right now. I'm
Right.
a big James fan, and I pray to God he stays healthy another 10 years and continue to play at a high level. Because when he's gone, we're gonna miss him. But who's the greatest? I mean, we really don't know because the things that
Hmm.
we argue about, you put different guys in different situations. You don't know how they will respond, so you just don't know.
Right. All right, here's another one. Been following you since you came to the Rockets. How do you identify a player's skills and weaknesses and build from it from there? And does your background in video play a huge role in that?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good one. So, video is huge. I think any great player, I think Bill Belichick, the name of his book is Education of a Coach.
Hmm.
He would hours and hours of film with his father, and that kind of helped him get to where he is today. And I think you look at the best players. I think who was it? LeBron obviously has a lot more money than me, but he has a room in his house where he has 6 to 8 televisions all connected, and he can watch every game in the NBA all at
Oh,
once.
wow.
Sit there. He's like Rain Man. He can sit there and tell you what happened the last 2 minutes of the Charlotte Miami game just on his night off. He's chilling with the kids and watching end of game situations. That way, when his team plays those guys, he kind of knows. I think what was it? Bron said something like they were playing. They might have been playing Milwaukee or something. Milwaukee ran a out of bounds play, and they missed a shot or something. He goes over to Milwaukee coaches and says, "That ain't in y'all's playbook." And the coaches
Oh,
start laughing. It's like, "Nah, we just threw that in today." And another one, like Chris Paul said, um, we were in Utah. He said something to the effect, if I got traded to Utah today, I would be able to run their offense today with no practices. And that's
wow.
how much film those guys watch. But when it comes to film study, I watch a lot of film. I use Synergy, Second Spectrum, all this stuff. YouTube even. I even watch a lot of other trainers and the stuff that they post. But you try to see what guys are good at our level, it's you can always make improvements on stuff, but I think at our level, in the NBA level, you're trying to find what can guys be specialists at. So I spent time with PJ Tucker in Phoenix before I came to the Rock. You know, the game even 5 years ago was so much different than what it is now.
Hmm.
Guys weren't taking as many threes. PJ was a really good 3-point shooter in Phoenix. Comes to Houston, and he's the best corner 3-point shooter in the league. You're getting passes from Chris Paul, James Harden, right on the money because they bring
Hmm.
so much attention. Now Russell Westbrook, and boom, now he's, like I said, the top corner 3-point shooter in the league, and he's gonna make a lot of money just doing what he does. And so, really, just trying to find ways, like I said, to maximize guys' potential.
Cool. And speaking of PJ Tucker, he's a guy who, about 5 to 7 years ago, uh, the NBA would have considered a tweener, and he's almost like a niche guy. And it was at one point it was hard for guys like that, and it was hard for
Yeah,
them to stay in the league when you're training a guy like that. And clearly, he was able to get through that era, and he has a role now. But do you have any unique skills and drills that you try to train guys like that who don't really have a natural position and really have to like make it by having a certain specialty?
nah, that's the beauty of it. I hear and I've seen a couple of trainers jump in on here hit all the time. People hit us up, oh, I need some NBA drills like that. There's no such thing because everything is on social media, is on YouTube. So everything that is being done with NBA players is being videoed and sent out. So now you got all these trainers around the world doing the same stuff with their kids. So basketball is basketball. Nobody's
Right.
reinventing it. With PJ, he's benefited from the fact that basketball is more positionless than ever. You don't
Exactly.
have Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, Shaquille O'Neal, and all those guys on the block anymore. Jokic
Hmm.
is really good, Embiid is really good, but the thing that messes those guys up is because the way the game is played now,
They float on the perimeter too.
you gotta get on the perimeter and they gotta guard.
Hmm.
So yeah, okay, you might be able to score on PJ maybe a couple times on the block, which he's strong enough to not let you back him down. But you got to go out there, guard the pick and roll, and possibly switch and guard one of these high level guards and switch on the pick and roll. So having those guys in the game a lot of times is a detriment to their team.
Cool. Here's one a guy I played basketball with back in the day. He's a coach now. Do you work with college players? And Deuce Turner scored 2,452 points in Philly. Any advice for a young 6 foot guard trying to make the league?
Yeah, I do work with a handful of college players. The thing I'll tell college players is, so every year I help work with the Chris Paul Elite Camp in North Carolina. So
Yeah.
we have top high school and college point guards, and the thing that I tell them is the thing that's going to separate everybody. Everybody can score. Everybody's quick. Everybody's dunking. All this stuff is cool. The thing that's going to separate everybody when you get to this level is your IQ. There's a ton of guys that can score the basketball. Every year we see a bunch of smaller, undersized guards that can score the basketball, and a
Hmm.
lot of those guys might get a shot. What we call a cup of tea in the NBA. They get their little quick cup of tea. Next thing you know, they're going overseas route, which is cool. Make your bread. But to stick in the NBA, you got to be able to do something besides score if you're going to stick. And if you're scoring, you got to be scoring 25,
Elite
30 a night.
level. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't be in there 8 points a game because a lot of times those smaller guys are defensive liabilities. But it's you got to be a dog defensively. You got to be a heck of a communicator. You got to be a great teammate. You got to do all the little things that the guys on the team that are scoring the points, all the little things that they're not doing. That's what you got to be doing. So, we this game is hard, man. I had this conversation last summer. Every year, a buddy of mine, Mike Procopio, who got me in the NBA, he talked to the 2000 was it 2008 Nike All American Camp group, and there's always an Instagram meme of like LeBron with like DeMar DeRozan and DeMarcus Cousins and all those guys when they're in like high school and college standing around. That camp was unbelievable. The amount of pros and all stars that we had at that
Hmm.
group. But Mike talked to that group and told them, look, he broke down like the last 10 years, the top 50 players in America. and he was just bringing up all these names, and I don't want to throw any names out, but you
Right.
guys can do it on your own listening. Talked about all these players that were high school All-Americans, college All-Americans that didn't stick in the league, and people were like, "Oh man, I forgot about him. I forgot about him." And it was just one or two little things that happened during the process that kept them out. Guys stopped working, fell in love with the lifestyle,
Hmm.
dedicated to their craft, all things that factored in that kept them from making it. So you got to figure that out early.
Right. And, you just mentioned, falling in love with the life and not, not the game, not the grind. Who are some of the hardest working athletes that you've trained?
I seen Ty on here, Trey Young on here. We actually literally just had this conversation. Trey is Trey is exceptional. Um, Trey, let me see who else. Chris Paul, like these guys really love it.
Hmm.
Trying to think who else. There's a handful of guys like Sean Livingston is a guy who you know I have a lot of admiration for because I suffered a similar injury to my leg. So for him to come back like, written off and be a three-time world champion. Trey, for instance, when he was in high school, he would work out with his high school team, but he was working out usually like one or two other times a day, hard by himself. And that's the thing that's going to separate guys like Kobe Bryant would talk about. He was getting up in the morning, might work out at 4 or 5 in the morning, then work out with the team, then go back and get extra workouts. So by year 3 or 4, he said, you can't catch up. I've been doing 3 workouts a
Right.
day for all this time. You working out 1.5 times a day, maybe. You can't catch up to me. So like those little separators, but I've been blessed. Like Chris Paul, like this dude watches more film than most assistant coaches. Uh, pays great detail to his body. LeBron James, like these guys, they have a legacy. They have a brand that they're trying to hold on to, and so this means a little bit more to those guys than just staying on an NBA roster.
It's funny, three of the guys you mentioned, Chris Paul, Trey Young, Sean Livingston, none of those guys are really going to overwhelm you athletically. So it
No,
makes sense. It makes sense that their skills are so down pat.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's funny because we have this argument with the whole Last Dance thing going on about the athletes then versus the athletes now, and the way the game has evolved from a skills perspective is unreal. Like the things that kids can do. I went to watch Chris Paul and Trevor Ariza's son were playing AAU here, and I saw like a 7-year-old kid do a clean Euro step, finish with the inside hand, and put all this spin on the ball and all this like NBA players weren't doing that 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if
Yeah.
you left 20, 30 years ago, you were left-handed. You would go to your right, dribbling with your left hand, like all this stuff. Like they just didn't have the skill sets back then. But now because we have all these trainers and we break down every move and every play, kids just have so much more than guys back then. But the skill set, the IQ, those are going to be the things that allow you to play 20 years in the NBA. Because God
Yeah.
forbid you have a little injury, a little, whatever, and you don't have that explosion anymore. Like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, these guys were able to play the game at a high level for a long time. LeBron James, what we're witnessing now, even though he still has his
Hmm.
athleticism, he still, he can make shots, he can make other people better. So those little things are going to be the separators in longevity.
Right. And hey, here's another good question. What's the most underrated dribble move in basketball?
Somebody hit me up with that the other day. Underrated dribble move. Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, that's a tough. I mean, I really love with March. I really love like the rocker cross. James does it a lot. So
Hmm.
basically, where you go left and I lean to the left and then cross you over in place. Like I love that move because
Right.
it sets you up to go to the strong, get back to the weak, and things out of it. Whether it's a step back, go. little stuff like that. But yeah, Trey said nutmeg, and it's funny. Trey said that. Me and Trey's dad talked about this
Trevor
last.
didn't like that nutmeg, Trey.
Trevor didn't like that nutmeg, and I told Trey about it. But with the nut, it's funny because back in the day with Pistol Pete Maravich, a lot of people listening are too young to know who Pistol Pete was. Pistol Pete would make plays where he would come, say the defender's on my left hip, and I'm making a drive right, and my teammate is open to my left. If I go right and I jump stop, pick up the ball to make a pass with my left hand, my teammate's not going to be open anymore. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So, Pistol figured out if I'm going right, defender's on my left hip, but my teammate's open, just go behind the back pass. And back
Right.
then they call that hot dogging, or he's trying to show off or whatever. That's the quickest move to make. Trey has always been, a smaller guard. The
Right.
quickest thing to do, if I'm going straight and the defender's there, it's almost impossible to always cross over right to left, left to right, dead set in front of a guy on the move. He's going to strip you. The quickest thing to do is to hesitate, drop it between his legs, freeze him and drop it to his legs. Now you get from
Yeah.
point A to B 10 times faster, but, to the average eye, it's a dope move, so it looks like he's showing off. That's not always the case. That's the
Right.
quickest way to get from point A to point B.
Nice. Yeah. Now, here's another question. Who's the most naturally skilled player that you've ever trained?
Naturally skilled. Kyrie and Trey are the two most skilled players I've ever worked with. The ability to use left hand, right hand, um, to finish with both of those hands, to dribble with both of those hands, to pass with both hands, to make any shot in basketball. They're the two most skilled players that I've ever worked with, especially being that skilled that young.
Right. How important, you mentioned it just now in that answer, how important is it to be able to finish with both of your hands,
When you're
at a high level?
when you're a smaller player, you have to be able to do it. People talk about like Chris Paul, obviously right hand loves to go right, and he's so good going right that a lot of times, so he's so tricky and deceptive. He
Yeah.
doesn't have to get back to his left hand a lot, but if he's forced to, he can do it. Same thing with a James Harden. People, don't think he likes to go right. Obviously, he's gonna go left 99% of the time. But if he's forced in that situation, he can do it. Trey and Kyrie, they're so crafty and so smooth that they've just never really kind of been dead set on one or the other. So they'll kind of pull you going either way. But when you're a smaller guard, I teach everybody you need to have every layup in your package, every floater, in your package, all those little mid-range intermediate shots you got to be able to have, because once you get older, you're not going to be able to get to the rim every single possession.
Right. Yeah, now I was interviewing a couple weeks ago Bruce Frazier. He's on the coaching staff of the Golden State Warriors. He does a lot of individual work with Steph Curry, and he told me that it's he's been doing it with Steph for 8 years, and not a day goes by where he's not in awe of something sometimes. Does that happen to you when you're working out these high level guys where you're just maybe under
Yeah,
your breath like, God damn.
yeah. I remember Steph in college. He came to camp with CP, and the first day of camp, we had CP and Steph on the same team. And what's up, boss? We had CP and Steph on the same team, and it was like one of those wild moments because you got Chris, where he's like still super fast and athletic, and then obviously Steph shoots the ball playing off of Chris. So it was pretty crazy. But those guys, man, Chris makes passes like if you see him, like he does some crazy stuff in games, but like if you see Chris in like a pickup setting, some of the passes that
Hmm.
he makes don't even make sense. To
Right.
see he's finishing, like I think he's the best finisher in the game. To see Kyrie in a pickup setting, it it doesn't make sense. Like the things that he
Right.
can do in basketball, putting spin off the glass and things of that nature. These guys really do this. Like you know, we were talking the other day in the gym, and there's always people that get on social media. They see a guy in the NBA. maybe the 14th, 15th guy on the roster, and they think, oh, this guy's a bum, or this guy can't do this, or I would kill this guy. I promise you, you will not. PJ
No.
Tucker, one on one will cook you. He has been assigned a role for his championship level team that he plays well, but you get him in a summertime setting where he's just allowed to do whatever he wants, he will cook you. I remember Brian Scalabrine.
Yeah, there are some people saying they could beat Brian Scalabrine one on one.
Brian Scalabrine, and he was like, all right, cool, like just got some regular dudes that love to hoop and destroyed all of them. Like people got to realize that these guys don't have class, they don't have chores, they get paid to put the ball in the hole. So, like this week, I had Clint Capella and Nanu Anawaku, who played for us with the Rockets. Had them in the gym. Nanu still
Yeah.
shoots free
Hmm.
underhand. He shoots like granny shots from the free throw line. Shoots like
Yeah, yeah.
75%. And so most people, they think Clint Capella, oh, he just catches lobs. Like you get them in just spot shooting, they will outshoot the average, you know, person that just plays at LA Fitness on the weekend and stuff like that. Like these guys get paid to play basketball, so it's pretty, extraordinary when you see guys, outside of their normal setting with their team.
Right. And so how proud are you when you see a player using, a specific move that you guys put a lot of hard work in, and when you see them them benefiting from that move, in live game action?
Yeah, it's really dope to see something finally click because with anything we do, it's going to take time. That's why my my teaching philosophy, I look at it the way Bruce Lee looked at martial arts. He would
Yeah.
say, I'm not scared of the man who knows 1,000 moves. I'm scared of the man who's practiced one move, 10,000 times or whatever. And with a lot of trainers, like we're trying to teach all these kids to get in their bag and do all this stuff. And I'm cool with that because at an early age, cool, we don't know what these kids are going to have. We don't know what their
Right.
ceiling is. So cool, throw everything at them. But there's got to be a certain point where we say, hey, you got to keep the game simple. You just need a couple moves, a couple counters, and then, become high level at that. Like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Kawhi Leonard, these guys didn't have 1,000 moves. You know what I mean? Like they
No.
just, even James Harden,
Efficient.
like they don't have 1,000 things that they go to. They have their little package. They get to that, and you can't do nothing about it.
Hmm. Now I know, one of the most known moves, but it seems like only James can do it with perfection is that step back three. How hard did you guys work on that step back?
So with him, James has the best feet in the NBA. So his ability to start stop is better than anybody in the league. So um, it's funny when I talk to people about I talk about James's step back, Chris Paul's side step. It's the
Hmm.
same thing, two different directions, right? You get the whole goal is to create space to get your jump shot off. So with James, he's stronger lower body, so he can
Yeah.
jump back, end up on balance, and end up straight up and straight down into his shot, and that works for him. Chris, I've seen Chris shoot over 7-footers right in his face. Like he can do some really crazy stuff even out of the post. I saw him cook Paul George in the post, just jab jumper and just shoot right open.
Right.
So for him to go sideways is better for him. So I think LeBron James and Stephen Curry, two of the best players in the league, they tried to mimic that move and it didn't work for them. So for each player,
Right.
man, I'm challenging to find out what works for you and become great at that.
All right, cool. I got two more questions for you, then I'll
Go
let
ahead.
you get on with your Saturday. I guess you probably watch the game from a different point of view than most people, given what you do for a living. Who are some of the guys you enjoy watching most play basketball?
Man, CJ McCollum,
Oh
um,
yeah, he's tough.
yeah, Bradley Beal, Kawhi, outside of the guys that I really work with,
Hmm.
like CJ, man, I've known CJ since college, and I never would have thought that he end up being what he is right now. To me, CJ is an all-star. He plays in the Western Conference, and it's tough to make it in
Loaded
the,
with guards. Yeah.
but he's an all-star level player. Um, his ability to create shots, be deceptive, um, he, like he's really, really crafty with the basketball on top of obviously his ability to shoot the basketball. Bradley Beal is like in the same mold. You know what I mean? Their
Hmm.
ability to get by guys, be deceptive is really crazy. And I love trying to watch those guys and steal stuff. I like watching guys like, Jokic too. Because
Yeah.
he's like we were talking about the smaller guards. He's not an athletic guy. If you saw him and you didn't know who he was, you would not believe that he was a professional athlete. But he finds a
Right.
way to get it done. But I still even watch old Steve Nash stuff, man, because Steve Nash is one of my favorite players to ever do it. I always really like guys that weren't the tallest guys, weren't the most athletic guys, but just use their skill set and IQ to be able to beat guys. So Steve Nash, Chauncey Billups was one of my favorite players. So I still watch a lot of old footage on those guys too.
Nice. It's funny you mentioned CJ. I watched CJ play several times in college too. I went to Syracuse, and one of my good friends played at Colgate, which is in the same conference as Lehigh. So I saw CJ come in, and I knew he was special. Another guy who a lot of people don't really talk about, who I saw play several times in person in college, who was tough, is Jeremy Lin. Jeremy Lin's
Yeah,
another guy who I
yeah,
saw in college, and that's so funny. It's just like a guy like Jeremy Lin. He's not an NBA All Star, but he is so skilled. And if you just sit and watch him play the game of the basketball, sometimes your jaw drops.
yeah, yeah. Jeremy is pretty crazy too because he's more athletic than what you think he is. He's pretty quick. He has long
Hmm.
arms and stuff. And it, obviously, when he went on that run in New York, that was pretty crazy. But
Insanity.
yeah, but he was for years one of the best pick and roll players in the league in terms of statistics.
Hmm. Right. All right. Last question for you, before I let you go. What's some advice you'd give to young trainers who are trying to get to where you are in your career?
Yeah, I think just the biggest thing, man, study your craft. Um, don't be too prideful to go out and try to learn from other trainers. Like I think of the amount of publicity that a lot of these guys are starting to get with social media, the followings and stuff. Everybody thinks they know more than everybody else. They think that they're better than everybody else because they got it's almost like being Instagram models. Like because you got a
Right.
million followers, you start to feel yourself and all that stuff. It's like, dude, we
Hmm.
teach basketball,
Frauding.
you
Hmm.
know. So I think continue to try to learn from other people, but then the most important thing, like I said, keep it about the players. It can't be about us because once you make it about you, then your players aren't seeing growth. And then if your players aren't seeing growth and improvement, then your little situation, whatever you got going, is going to shut down. You're not going to have any longevity. So
Right.
continue to make it about
Awesome, man. Hey, Irv, thanks for tapping in, bro. Once we get
no
past
doubt.
all of this BS, and if you get to the Bay Area, holler at me. We'll grab a beer or something.
For sure, man. Holler at me, man.
All right, man. Take care
All
of
right,
yourself. Have a good one.
all right, bet.